Today's presentation reviews the case study Communication Failures from Kerzner's Project Management Case Studies. The case shows how quickly a project can get into trouble when communication is casual, assumed, or undocumented. Herb had strong technical knowledge, but project management requires more than subject matter expertise. It requires guiding people, confirming expectations, protecting scope, managing authority, and keeping information moving clearly across the team. PMI explains that successful projects depend on stakeholder engagement, leadership, planning, and project work systems that support shared understanding. The project looked stable for the first 2 months, but Friday the 13th exposed deeper problems. Herb had a large team, several functional leads, and a 2-year contract that moved from R&D into manufacturing. That alone required structure. The issue was not one bad conversation, it was a pattern. The sponsor, Alice, Bob, Betty, and Frank all acted from different assumptions. Research on project communication shows that communication planning and the chosen communication medium can significantly affect project delivery. Herb had meetings, but he did not yet have a true communication system. Question 1. How important are communication skills? Communication skills are critical in project management because the project manager is constantly coordinating people who own different pieces of the work. A project manager may not perform every task, but the manager must make sure everyone understands the task, the owner, the deadline, the decision path, and the risk. In this case, Herb's verbal messages were not enough. They created room for misunderstanding. Gomes and others find that stakeholder and communication management are closely connected to project success because projects rely on stakeholder engagement and shared information. Without that, work moves, but not always in the right direction. Question 2. Was Herb the right project manager? Herb was technically qualified, but he was not fully prepared to lead the project. That does not mean he could never become a strong project manager. It means management gave him responsibility without giving him the support, coaching, or communication structure he needed. His PhD and product knowledge were valuable, especially for R&D and manufacturing work. Still, project leadership also requires people skills and process discipline. Zwickel and others explain that communication often breaks down when stakeholders do not share the same understanding of project concepts. Herb needed mentoring, a communication plan, and clearer authority rules. The communication process involves a sender, encoding, channel, decoding, feedback, and action. Most of the failures in this case occurred because feedback was weak or missing. People sent messages, but no one confirmed what the message meant. The sponsor expected a report. Herb expected a decision. Alice expected support. Herb heard only an update. Betty thought cost research meant permission to buy. Frank expected to be included. PMI emphasizes tailoring communication to stakeholder needs and project context. Herb needed a basic rule. Project critical information should be confirmed in writing. The sponsor issue was mainly a channel and feedback failure. A hallway conversation was too casual for a cash flow concern. Herb should have confirmed whether the sponsor wanted a written report or only a decision. The Alice issue was different. That was an encoding and decoding problem. Alice hinted that she was up for promotion, but she did not clearly ask Herb for a recommendation. Herb heard the words literally and missed the implied request. Both situations show that unclear messages can damage trust. Effective communication requires clarification, especially when the topic affects money, promotions, or project authority. Bob's issue involved authority, documentation, and channel failure. Herb bypassed Bob and gave verbal direction to engineering technicians. Since the written specifications said something different, the technicians followed the specifications. Bob was right that technical changes needed to go through the engineering lead and be documented. The Betty and Frank situation involved unclear decision rights. Herb asked Betty to check costs, but she interpreted that as permission to buy. Frank should have been involved because manufacturing materials affected his budget and future plans. This supports Akintalou and others' point that communication plans and communication media need to be managed carefully. What Herb should do next? Herb's first mistake after the problems surfaced was canceling the team meeting. That was exactly when the team needed communication the most. He should hold a reset meeting, acknowledge the confusion, and establish new communication rules. He should also create a communication plan that identifies what information must be shared, who receives it, which channel is used, and what decisions require written approval. A RACI chart would also help clarify who is responsible, accountable, consulted, and informed. PMI stresses that project managers must adapt methods and communication practices to the needs of the project and stakeholders. The major lesson is that expertise does not automatically equal project leadership. Herb understood the technical work, but he did not yet understand how much structure people needed when several departments are involved. Assumptions created almost every problem in the case. The sponsor assumed a report. Alice assumed support. Bob assumed Herb would document a change. Betty assumed she had buying authority. Frank assumed he would be consulted on manufacturing purchases. These are not small issues. They affect budget, schedule, morale, and trust. Strong project communication makes expectations visible and decisions traceable. This case shows that communication is not just talking more. It is building a system where the right people receive the right information in the right way and at the right time. Herb needed written confirmations, role clarity, decision rules, and feedback loops. He also needed to stop relying on informal conversations for project critical matters. In the end, Herb's failure was not that he lacked intelligence, he lacked project management preparation. With coaching and structure, he could improve. Without those supports, the same communication failures would likely continue and create larger project risks. These are the references.